Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with some more Warhammer 3 news, some bite-sized stuff which was officially posted in the Creative Assembly Total War Discord. Creative Assembly supplied the screenshot a little bit in advance so videos could be made, and of course today we're going to be talking about Skarbrand and what they're calling as faction mechanics. It's really just faction effects and lord effects, but hey, we should discuss this as a lot of people are curious as to how Skarbrand will have anything special when his campaign is playable. So let's start off with the faction effects first. So armies replenish in foreign territory. This is quite big as obviously this was kind of expected for a Khornate force, especially something that you're going to be very hyper aggressive. As far as I'm aware, this means that you'll be constantly replenishing and you won't need to go into an additional stance, which is going to be quite good and very much needed if you're going to try and move around as much as possible. Next, a rather simple one, that diplomatic relations -20 with Khornate factions. I mean, we all kind of expected that because, you know, he was banished by Khorne, which means that any sort of diplomacy whatsoever is kind of out the window, as we already know that Khornate factions will auto-declare on other people, so this is going to make it a bit harder, though mind you, -20 is still kind of nothing, because I'm assuming that as you're causing damage, you're still going to kind of buff up your diplomatic relationship with other Khornate factions. Plus, let's be perfectly honest here, diplomacy for the Total War series has always been kinda bad, unless we do get a Fabled diplomacy rework, which we know is coming, but we still don't know exactly how it's going to affect and how it's going to work and so on. Hopefully Creative Assembly will want to provide some information on that, well, soon, I imagine. This last one for the faction effects, keep in mind that this affects your whole faction, is campaign movement range plus 25% after raising a settlement for all characters. This is a pretty good bonus. If you've played the Beastmen post-rework, you know how this works, so this is going to be quite useful as it will keep you moving and so on. I imagine that anything that we're seeing here in terms of any percentages and so on is still subject to change, so anything could change by the time that release comes or the showcases eventually happen. I would have personally given the Khornate faction a little bit more, as 25% is pretty much just enough to go into encamp stance or something. It's not really a lot, but hey, it could still mean something. And it depends on where you're actually fighting. If you're doing this through the Empire, specifically say Ostland or whatever, there's not a lot of places that you can go from section to section. But that's it in terms of faction bonuses. It's not really a lot, but then again, some of them are quite good. Army replenishment in foreign territory is great. Now let's look towards the actual lord effects for Skarbrand. So the first lord effect is campaign movement range plus 35% after winning a battle, which is quite good. Now that's going to be quite useful depending on where you're fighting. If there's settlements that are relatively close, you're going to be able to go from settlement to settlement. This won't always work in most cases, as you are aware, some settlements are very far from each other, but still 35% is really good. Now I have asked for clarification regarding the campaign movement range plus 25% after raising a settlement, and campaign movement range plus 35% after winning a battle, if it will stack for Skarbrand, because it kind of sounds like it can, though we were given this on a Friday and obviously the devs go home for the weekend, so if a update does come from this, I will put it in a pinned comment so you guys can see it, or a generic Twitter update or something just to make sure that you guys are aware, because if it does stack, that would be kind of tasty, because you do have to battle before raising a settlement. You get what I mean? That's why I myself am confused, because if that does stack, that would be a 60% increase to your campaign movement range, which would be pretty tasty, and that would give you a lot of incentive to get into a lot of battles with Skarbrand. And then finally, recruitment cost minus 35% when an enemy or raised territory. So this is going to be quite good. I'm assuming that's because of global stuff and all that, so yeah, useful. It is only for Skarbrand though, so yeah, I mean, once you get your Doom stack up and running, you're not really going to need that, and I'm assuming that you should be able to get a Doom stack pretty early. It really depends on how the game actually plays, and we're going to see more of that eventually, but until then, it's still kind of confusing. Now, that's pretty much it when it comes to faction mechanics. That's what they're calling it, by the way. It's just the effects, but that's what they're calling it. Unfortunately, no other images like the starting army or anything like that, which is a shame, because that would have been nice to know, but I guess they want to keep it as a surprise or something for the future. But until then, if anything new does come up, I'll just update it here. I'll put it on a pinned comment. I do apologize, I do wish there was more to share, but that's pretty much it. I hope you guys are having a nice day at the very least, but until then, I shall see you all again soon, I hope.